Hey everybody, welcome to RAINER Radio. I am your host Joshua Rainer, and we're going to keep rolling on the sugar diet because it seems to only be getting bigger and bigger. Now, I'm getting tons of questions on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter, and while I'll keep doing the Q&A episodes, I think it's a really good idea to just kind of try to lay everything out so people know what is going on, and maybe I can get ahead of some of these questions, and this is going to sort of serve as a one-stop shop on the rundown of what the deal is with the sugar diet. So I think the most important part to start with is the sugar part. At the core of this diet, it is a pure sugar period, right? And that's why you're seeing this thing called sugar fasting. So if we can first identify that there is a period for some amount of time that is what we're going to call a sugar fast. Now, the sugar fast can include fruit, it can include fruit juice, and it can include sugar, which includes white sugar, honey, maple syrup, other syrups, things in that vein. And of course, you can make smoothies, you can combine fruit and juice and syrups and blend them together and kind of make them the way you want. But we're really trying to maximize getting in as much dietary sugar as we can, as well as the micronutrients that are present in the fruit and the fruit juice. And remember, this is a pure sugar period, which means no fat, no protein, and no starch. Now, yes, there are some trace elements of these foods in fruit, but we're kind of going for as clear as we can get to being pure sugary foods. Now, some people have talked about bananas and dates as potentially being problematic. And there's a lot of discussion about what causes the problem. I've heard some people say that they're just too starchy. Whatever it is, it seems like those are potential problems, but some people consume them no problem. So just something to think about when you're setting up a sugar fasting period. You can really have as much fruit, as much juice, and as much sugars as you want. And this might include kind of more condensed forms like jam, and preserves, things like that. But it seems like dried fruits, again, are a little too dense, and for whatever reason, that causes problems. So if we maybe set bananas and dates in a separate category, and maybe they work for some people and maybe they don't, and then dried fruits probably being best to limited, not in general, but just for sugar fasting as like kind of a greater concept. So if we've identified that there's this process, this time period called a sugar fast, then from there, we can construct a greater picture of what we're doing and a diet. So one of the ways that this has kind of been described is it's basically intermittent sugar fasting, which if anyone has any experience or knowledge about intermittent fasting, it's you just don't eat for a part of the day. You might delay the first time that you eat until lunch. Some people delay it until dinner, and then you eat maybe a more normal meal with still some sort of regard to what it is that you're consuming from a dietary perspective. So instead of not eating anything, you just get to have fruit, juice, and sugars, which makes it, of course, much easier, and you have a lot more energy, and you're still getting food and you're getting something for your metabolism to work with. So you can do it in kind of what the original honey diet, how it was framed, is that it's just fruit and sugar all day, and then you have meat and vegetables for night. The sugar diet that Cole Robinson described, very, very similar setup, in many ways almost identical, though it seems like, Cole's kind of talking about more of the greater picture now, and he's even kind of leaning more towards sugar fasting. And Mark Bell's kind of doing that as well, because I do think it's really important for people to really understand sugar fasting. And in many ways, if you can't get a grasp of that, you can't really do the rest of the diet in any way, shape, or form. But the way that I think about this is everything has a cyclical nature to it, and everything is segmented into various periods. And so if you can first identify the sugar fasting period, then from there, you can really construct anything you want. So the sugar fasting is, like I said, the crux of this whole thing. And it needs to be well understood enough to be able to do it for an entire day. if you can't sugar fast for an entire day, you don't really understand what's happening. So it's why I would recommend for people to, even if they're going to go into the more balanced approach where they have dinner every night, do a sugar fasting day, at least to start, just so you kind of know what it's like to get all of your calories from fruit and sugar. And then you will find the ability to, you can throw that in whenever you'd like. Going from there, you will start to see the like where you might want to be doing multiple days at a time. And again, this is in many ways to just feel that kind of rolling metabolic momentum that you get when you cut out all protein, all fat, all starch. Now, I know people are saying, hey, this is extreme. Why don't we do something more balanced? Okay, first off, there's nothing about like our normal lives right now that is not extreme. I am talking into a camera right now and a microphone, and you're going to listen to this at a later time. So we're already living and dealing with this very unnatural world, and all of our inputs from every single part of our environment and from our food is very extremely unnatural. And to get anywhere to do something extreme is not, out of the realm of what we might want to try to do. And so does it sound extreme? Well, if people were getting results from doing the most standard, quote unquote, balanced approach, then we wouldn't be here. But clearly there's something missing and we need something more. And I think that the sugar fasting specifically might be one of the clearest shots to kind of like really skip through a lot of problems in terms of getting our metabolic health back. So many people are, there's the classic thing. We are overfed but malnourished. So there's an abundance of calories and not enough nutrients. But similarly, a lot of people who are trying to be healthy then do a bunch of things which more or less get rid of the overfed part, but funny enough, it's almost like they flip it and we still don't solve any problem. Because what happens is all of these various diets that people do that are very restrictive, and of course this isn't not this this is also restrictive, but it depends on how we're doing it. People are eating less if they're doing the more quote unquote balanced way, and they're either doing it more reasonable or they're doing a crash diet, and usually they start working out a bunch. And what this does over time is it starts just exhausting the metabolism as people are asking more and more of their bodies and not giving them enough substrate to work with to keep their metabolism going. And what starts to happen is everything just kind of starts to shut down. Their body starts falling apart. They lose energy. They feel worse. And inevitably, if they've lost weight, then they turn around and just gain it back. So we're trying to avoid all those problems. And if you've been in diet circles for a long time, you might have heard about the thyroid, which, the kind of classic thing is like every other woman says that she's overweight because she has a thyroid problem. And the thing is, I think everybody, for the most part, has a thyroid problem. And one of the best ways to really be made aware of that is the fact that one of the clearest ways to tell whether or not someone is hypothyroid is you look at their TSH. And TSH stands for thyroid stimulating hormone. And I believe the reference range now is anything under 4 is considered normal. When it used to be, you had to be under 1 to be normal. And this is why, I know not everyone's ready for it, but I try to tell people to start looking into Ray Peat, because you can see how much, especially because he had been doing this back in the day, how much all of our science and medical knowledge and advice changed over the years. So I think just about every average person is abnormal. Like, we're all abnormal as far as we're so far away from healthy. There's a classic thing where, our great grandfathers had testosterone like 3 times ours when they were like 60 years old. And our great grandmothers had like 12 kids and, didn't have to do anything special, no fertility treatments. So we're all screwed up. And what we're trying to deal with is this screwed up world and screwed up state that we're all in. So yeah, this is extreme, but do you want the results or not? Personally, I want health. I want to feel good. And I don't care how silly or ridiculous what I'm doing is if it gets me the results I want. And once you feel the power of sugar fasting, and if for no other reason, what you're doing is you're streamlining energy into the system by giving yourself essentially pure sugar, and you're getting rid of all the other excesses that get in the way of it. Yes, protein and fat and even starch can get in the way of your body receiving energy from sugar. And so, in many ways, all the recommendations to avoid sugar are like the craziest thing imaginable because sugar is kind of like it's whittled down the most purest sense of what energy is for our bodies. Now, all of us are different. We have different metabolisms. We have different lives that have led us to this point. We have different genetics. And so every person's version of this is going to look different. And that's why I think this is so powerful, because what this is doing is this is giving you the tools to figure out what it is that you need to do. And if you can get the sugar fasting basic and just get that figured out and know how to do that so well, then everything else can fall into place. So if you can start with 1 day, start with 3 days, and just get your body to know what that's like. And because one of the main issues I see is people not eating enough. They still come from the restrictive mindset, the traditional diet mindset, and they feel like if they eat less, they're going to get better results. But that's not what we're trying to do at all. Most people are not getting in enough sugar through the fruit, through the juice, through whatever else is they're adding. And so what they're feeling is terrible. They say, oh, I felt good, and then I lost my energy. And you find out how much they're eating, and you realize like they might only be eating 2,000 calories of fruit. And, fruit has fiber and it can fill you up. But I'm going to keep hammering on this thing. There's a difference between being full and being satiated. And most people are getting full on fruit, but they're not satiating their energy needs. And the two main things that I want everyone to be able to kind of look back at that will help determine whether or not their energy needs are being met are, one, their body temperature. You will see how well your metabolism is working based on what your body temperature is. And just about everybody, if you want to have a functioning metabolism, your morning waking temperature should be about 97.7 degrees or above. And if you're under that, you are going to be, again, falling in this kind of hypothyroid, low metabolic rate kind of place. And then after eating, by the noon time, you'd want to be at 98.6 or above. And so, yes, look, you might not be there yet, but if you can take your temperature, it doesn't have to be every day, but on a regular basis and see your temperature going up, that is a good sign that your metabolism is getting better. On the flip side, you can have an increased body temperature from being overly stressed out, and you'll actually find that when you eat, it gets lower. And so that's kind of really all you need to do. If you can tell that your temperature is in the right range, or if it's not, it's getting higher, then you can tell that what you're doing is working over time and your metabolism is recovering. And then, like I said, on the flip side, if your waking temp first thing in the morning is higher than after you eat to the midday point, then that's a sign that your temp is actually being falsely elevated by the stress hormones. And that's even a greater sign that your metabolism is not very good. The other thing is sleep. If you don't eat enough, your sleep will suck. And I experienced this firsthand. This is how I know. If I eat sugar and I eat so much of it, I sleep like a baby. I am blown away by how well I've been sleeping. And that's why if I never lost any weight and my physique never ever changed and my performance in the gym never changed, the energy that I have every day and my ability to sleep would make this just a no-brainer for me. And I think that is where a lot of people are going to be getting some good feedback of whether or not this is working. Yes, we want to see the scale going down. People are doing this to lose weight, and that's good and that's fine. But if someone starts crashing their calories down to get a few more pounds off the scale and they see those metrics, the temperature and the sleep get thrown off, that'll be a clear sign that what they're not going with their body to get the results. So that being said, we've kind of established this sugar fasting paradigm. And that is going to be this, I guess, it's this really foundational element here. And if you can't get that figured out, you're really never going to be able to get anywhere else. So once we have that, we can do full day sugar fast. We can do multi-day sugar fast. And look, a lot of people who are criticizing this are themselves coming from a keto, carnivore, prolonged fasting kind of perspective. And they are the last people who should be talking about this, because what they're doing is not eating food for extended periods of time, severely limiting carbs from their diet for long, very, very long, perhaps indefinite periods of time. And so we can get into an argument about whether fat or carbs are better and all that kind of jazz. But as far as the extremity of what we're doing, to tell someone that, hey, I only had fruit for a couple days, is that really the craziest thing you've ever heard of? The thought that a human being might be in a situation where all they could get would be fruit, and not only just they'd get some fruit, but like plentiful amounts of it, and somehow that is some like horrendous cause for concern and alarm, not really buying it. So if you can build up that ability, and then you can figure out how to essentially, again, cycle in all other foods, because we're not vegans. And though there's Durian Rider and Freely the Banana Girl, that's not what I'm trying to do. And that's not what I'm trying to get anyone else to do. And so if that's what you want to do, that's fine. Go watch their content. They have great content. I don't believe in that at all, because we still get the full spectrum of nutrients by combining plant and animal foods. We want to do it in the combination that works for our metabolism, that gets us to lose weight, that makes us feel good, that gives us energy, that gets us to sleep good. We can have the best of all of it. And so the dinner aspect is going to be a great way to still get this sugar fasting right now, where it's kind of this intermittent sugar fasting kind of period, where you just eat the fruit and sugars all day, and you have perhaps something that resembles a more normal dinner at night. Now, if you want to continue losing weight at a good rate, the best way to do it would be to have your dinner be a lean protein source. And it does not need to be a ton of meat. Most of us are used to eating a whole pound of meat for dinner, sometimes even more. I don't think that anyone watching this, unless you are already very large, very muscular, and very lean, is going to be needing to eat over 150 grams of protein in a day. Most people are going to be fine under 100. And again, this is just for this weight loss period. Once you are lean, you can do really whatever you want. You can do a lot more things, and you have more flexibility to play with all these different options and see what works for you. But you add in that lean protein source, and now you've basically given yourself a nice inclusion of these animal source nutrients. And especially if you're doing things like seafood and fish and some organ meats, you're getting a whole bunch of really, really dense nutrient sources, right? You're getting these rich minerals, these vitamins, all these micronutrients that are really going to help round out the diet. That is kind of this like, that in a ways, that's like the entirety of the quote unquote clean version of this diet. You have the all sugar fasting period, and then you have the sugar fasting with some lean protein for dinner. Now, I still like to think that there's a lot of room still in what we're calling clean here, and which I've talked about in previous episodes. One would be, we want to add some starch into the dinner. One, just for pure enjoyment's sake, pleasure's sake, craving, life, whatever. And also sometimes, and I feel this myself, and this is what I want you to be able to get to, is you can tell when your body needs a little something different. And so if you want to add a starch, then the clean version of this is a lean protein with a starch. You want to keep the fat down, and that way you're not going to gain any fat from the inclusion of the starch. Now, what you can even do is you can cut out the protein altogether, because sometimes I'll find I'm not craving protein. I'm just craving starch. I'm just craving a big bowl of white rice. I'm just craving some pasta with some herbs on top and maybe a little tomato sauce. And in that case, you can do that too. But again, you're adding more and more options to your arsenal. The other one, which I've talked about, is a fattier protein. You're going, oh, you know what? I could really use a big juicy steak. Have your big juicy steak. That is still within the realm of what we can kind of consider to be like on the plan. You can eat that steak. You can have, again, satisfy your cravings. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, we're all fans of red meat. A lot of people have been already done carnivore. If you're coming from that and you still go, oh man, once in a while, I want my big fat ribeye. Have your big fat ribeye and just get right back on the plan the next day, get into your sugar fasting and do whatever you want again for dinner within the clean realm. And then outside of that, now we're adding in more variety. And that's where the power of this comes, is it gives you such a strong strategy to do anything you want in there. If you are going to have an absolute blowout, you're saying, oh, it's my birthday and I want to go out and have a blast and have, chocolate cake and eat whatever, or I want to go out for pizza and beer with my buddies. Do your sugar fast during the day, have your pizza and beer at night, and then just go back to sugar fasting the next day. You might see your weight jump up, and for many people, it might come right back down after one day of sugar fasting. But what you're doing is you're giving yourself a tool to deal with anything that it is that you want to do. And that's where the power in this lies. Because I have found that I will still feel very, very close to that top level if I maintain that sugar fasting element for the entire day period and then let loose a little bit at night. And again, that's like, for me, that's the major selling point. It's how much energy I have and how well I'm sleeping, which go hand in hand. And it just gives me a better way to go through every single aspect of my life. And look, maybe you're going to do a totally crazy day. You're going to go out for brunch. You're going to have mimosas. You're going to eat pancakes and waffles and whatever you want. And then you're going to go watch football at the bar with your friends. And you're going to have chicken wings and beer for lunch. And then you're going to go out for dinner and you're going to have pizza or whatever. Fine. Like, again, this is life. Live your life. And then you know what you can do the next day? You can crush fruit and sugar and feel as good as possible as soon as possible again. And that's really what we're talking about here. People have expressed all these concerns, all these questions, about starch and protein and this and that, about like what is allowed and what am I supposed to do? Again, the heart of this, the very, very core of this approach to eating, and this is a protocol, right? This is a tool that we are wielding to get us to our results and to drive weight loss from a healthy way to use the metabolism. The core of this is the sugar fast. Like I said before, if you understand the sugar fast, you will be able to get through anything. You can go off all of this for multiple weeks, and then you can just jump right back into sugar fasting. That's how powerful this is. Because so many people have promoted regular fasting, water fasting, where you don't eat anything and drink water to deal with, any kind of problem. Oh, I've gained a little bit of weight. I was traveling. I need to reset myself. Well, if you don't eat anything and people go, oh, I'm getting to the autophagy or autophagy, however you pronounce it, I'm clearing things up. You can still get all of that by consuming fruit and by consuming sugar. But your metabolism, your body needs energy to do everything. And if you don't take in energy, your body has to break itself down. Your body has to be catabolic. You have to use stress hormones. You have to break down your hard-earned muscle tissue and your bone and potentially even your organs to come up with energy to do this. But you will be much more effective at clearing things up, at getting your energy back, at losing weight, at detoxing, any single thing that you can think about. Your body will do better, all of this, with some sugar. One of the best ways, all the detoxes have sugar in them. Juice cleanses have sugar. The best liver detox is apple juice, sugar. The master cleanse, sugar. Sugar is going to fuel all of this. And it's so crazy how we've been not just like we've been led to believe, but like everyone is just convinced that somehow sugar is the cause of every single problem that we have, when at its core, it is this base element of energy that our body can use, our ideal fuel for our body to do everything that it needs to do. So I really want people to understand the sugar fast. That's going to be such a huge part of this. And, one of the other questions that I get very, very often is like, to what extent are these other foods like screwing things up, right? Like I said before, people are asking about protein and starch and where to include that. This is a way for you to figure out what you need to do. And if you understand the sugar fast, you will know how to navigate all of these different issues that come up. If you want to include protein and starch on any given night, you can do that. Your body will tell you what it needs. What I have found is, oddly enough, I crave fat absolutely zero. I don't know why. I think it's just because my body is so fueled by sugar, and it's learning to not think of fat from food as fuel. And if it's using sugar for fuel, then it can use the fat for what it needs to do, a lot of hormonal production. And just listening to my body, at no point, even on the days that I would say I'm more resembling something like cheating, I don't usually eat fat unless, I go out to dinner and there's pizza or ice cream or something like that. But it never really comes into my cravings. Usually what I crave is starch and some protein, and there's usually some kind of salty element to that. Now, you might have different cravings, and so that is what you have to navigate. Maybe for you, when you have your more out there days, you're going to be eating big fat steaks. And that's totally fine. That's what your body's telling you that you need to do. And the thing is, I can't tell you that. Nobody can tell you that. Cole Robinson can't tell you that. Mark Bell can't tell you that. Durian Ryder can't tell you that. Only you know what your body is trying to signal you to do. And all I want to do is help you figure out how to listen to that and deal with it and work with it. Right now, someone might say, oh, my body's telling me to eat Doritos. Well, maybe your body's just telling you to have some salty starch, right? Like the popularity of something like potato chips, which is salt, fat, and starch. Well, your body wants those things, but probably not in the form of Lay's potato chips. And so if you're getting that craving, you have to learn how your body is associating those nutrients with those foods, because that's what you've been used to eating. And instead, you could just, cook up some fried potatoes at home with some butter and some salt. So you have to figure out what your cravings mean, and then you have to figure out how to fit them in. And again, that's why I think that the sugar fasting, especially the intermittent sugar fasting framework is so good for this, is because if I am so well fueled with sugar during the day, I find that my desire to pig out on anything is drastically diminished. Like if I'm going to, first off, if I'm just going to do a pure sugar fasting day and I'm around other people that are eating, these big, juicy, meaty, fatty meals, I like those foods. I want to eat those foods. But if I have so much sugar in me, I don't really even think about it. I just my body's energy needs are so satisfied by the sugar that it really just doesn't need anything else. And so if you do that, you will kind of save yourself from cheating on the diet when you don't want to. And it's also actually going to get you to more properly understand your hunger cravings. That's going to be big, and this is what I talked about, I think, on my last YouTube live, where I said, if you just sat down with a bottle of water and a bowl of salt and a bowl of sugar, and throughout the day, those were all the things that you could consume, you would be blown away by how many of your cravings are totally satisfied by just water, salt, or sugar. And we think of all these other foods oftentimes as just vehicles for those things. I mean, think about how much you would want to eat starch if it had zero salt on it. You'd be surprised. It'd be a lot less than even like the giant bowl of rice that you can't pour soy sauce on, and you can't sprinkle salt on, and you can't add hot sauce to, or potatoes without fat or salt. It's a lot less than you think. And again, a lot of this is we have associations with certain foods. And one of the clearest ways to just blow through that is with the sugar fasting, is with focusing on fruit, getting in the sugars, making sure that your body's caloric energy needs are satisfied by sugar itself. That will reveal a lot to you. And, again, it's one of the things that it bothers me with so many different approaches to health and nutrition is it's so easy to dismiss and kind of forget the fact that people want to lose weight. In the carnivore world, there are so many people who are fairly overweight, and in their head, they're just doing carnivore as some sort of like, I don't know, not like a cheat code, but they're like, I can do anything as long as it's carnivore. I can make all these real, like I saw this video for like carnivore bread that was just like eggs and collagen, and it's just like, dude, what are you doing? If your body actually wants bread, then it wants bread. It doesn't want this weird, you trick your body and all this like weird stuff. Like all the keto treats, all of these keto desserts and all this artificial sweeteners. It's just like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? Like, this is crazy. You think that your body wants those things because it wants like the idea of those things. It's this weird like fake justification where I really want this thing and I can't give in to that urge because it's a bad thing. So I'm going to completely justify this weird fake construction of that thing. What are you actually satisfying, right? Like you think that like there's one of my biggest problems with like the plant milks is the fact that like people treat them like their milk. Like there are actually people who believe that the milk that comes from an almond or oats actually has the same nutritional properties as the milk that comes from a cow. It's just not from a cow. It's just not allergenic if you're lactose intolerant, or it's just vegan because it's not cow's milk. It doesn't have the same nutrients. It doesn't have all the calcium. It doesn't have all the protein, fat. It's just not the same thing. And so this weird thing where people are doing where they substitute these fake foods is just complete nonsense. Keto does it, carnivore does it, vegan does it. And again, the people who do that stuff the most tend to be the people on those diets who are still very overweight. And so many people need to lose weight. So many people want to lose weight. And yes, it's good to focus on health in this holistic sense because you don't just want to lose weight. You want to also be healthier. You want to also feel good. You want to feel much, much better. But you are not going to feel your best if you're doing all this stuff and you're still carrying around a bunch of extra weight. And what's the problem is that too many people have gotten away from getting people the results that they want, and they're still unhappy and they still don't have the same energy. And if that's the case, they're never actually getting what they want out of a diet. And they're kind of being like sold a false bill of goods. They get in there and then it becomes this kind of like, it's okay to justify being as fat as you want. As long as you're healing, right? They use that word, like you're healing. It's like, dude, you've been healing for like 7 years and you still feel like crap and you still haven't lost the weight. At some point, this should kind of something should be progressing here. And for me, I've talked about this before. I came to all of this from the Ray Peat perspective. And I think his work and his framework it's still so underappreciated. It's still so unknown and it's completely misunderstood. But using that framework I'm telling you, it's going to be the future. It's going to be the future. And weirdly enough, I know some people in the Ray Peat community are kind of upset with the sugar diet because they feel like it's going to discredit his work. But again, you have to think about the masses. The masses are not going to sit there and read the articles of Ray Peat and the books of Ray Peat. Most people just can't handle that. They can't handle that. And that's why I always recommend for people to get the book by Kate Deering called How to Heal Your Metabolism. It's just like, in many ways, it's like the dummy's guide to peating. It is the normie friendly version. It's the book that I gift people that I recommend. You can give it to your parents, give it to your family, friends. It's a really, really good way to just break people into sugar's not the worst thing ever. It's actually kind of good for you. And there's all these variety of things that you can implement. And so many of my friends who I've given this book to have completely changed their lives from it without ever having to even know who Ray Peat is. That being said, there are still so many people, especially in the Ray Peat community, who still aren't getting the results they want. They're not getting the health they want. They're not getting the weight loss that they want. And I was one of those people. I came to this stuff after being a healthy person my whole life and very athletic and in good shape and nice and lean and muscular. And I came to Ray Peat literally on my deathbed. And part of that was, and I was already someone who had, my carnivore stint was only, not even a year, right? I had been eating carbs for most of my life, but you still in your head, you still think that sugar is this bad thing. Carbs are this bad thing that can work for you, but you have to justify them. And so for me, like Ray Peat was one of those things like, no, man, sugar is just kind of like really, really good for you, actually. But I gained weight. And so many people who come to it, they always come to it for the most part after low carb phases, and they always gain weight. And then over time, they're still unhappy. And for me, the biggest thing wasn't the way that my body was. It was the fact that I had no energy. I just felt like crap. And my sleep has never been very good throughout my life. And for me, it was specifically, like I said, I came to this from anabology with the honey diet. I had kind of already been in the past, I'd already done something very similar to this, but I didn't really realize what I was doing. I had just been doing the sugar throughout the day because it was just the easiest way to go through the day and not have to kind of sit down and digest my food. But it was kind of combining that element with my own experience when the way that I was eating, when I was training really consistently, with reading Ray Peat, with getting the honey diet perspective from anabology, and then kind of diving into it. And it's funny, like the way, I don't know if I've talked about this before, the way that I found Cole Robinson is because I was already eating exactly like this. I'd been cutting out protein for days at a time, and I was binging Durian Ryder videos. And then Durian Ryder did a video on Cole Robinson eating sugar. And I had never followed Cole before. I just knew him as this guy who yelled at people to not eat. And I was like, wait, I thought this was like a fasting guy. And it's like, he's on sugar. And it was kind of this like weird combination of all of these different elements. And the more that you kind of hear different people talk about it, you see the way that people are experimenting with it. That is just kind of like what totally blew the floodgates for me. And I was really able to just lean into, what does my body feel like if it's running on pure sugar? And it turns out that this has been the best thing that I've ever done for my body, because I have been getting just pure, so much energy that it's actually mind-blowing sometimes. Like I'm having trouble recognizing the person that I am, and then now recognize the person that I was before when I just wasn't getting enough sugar. Like how many of my problems in my life have been because I was not getting enough sugar? How many people are there out there who just need more sugar? And again, sugar in the absence of fat, protein, and starch, because that all interferes with your metabolism. If you can just mainline sugar, you go, holy shit, I have energy now. I have energy. This is crazy. And I really think that this thing is like curing my ADHD. The fact that I'm making all these videos now, for me is just like one of the reasons why I always struggled making content, even though I always wanted to, was like, oh, like the energy. And then you're worried about like, well, I need to set it up right. And it's like, look, this is just in my home office. And there used to be a painting there. There's nothing on the walls. And before I'd be like, well, I need to get a better camera. I need to worry about this and all that other stuff. And now I'm just like, screw it. I'll make this until I have the ability to take care of those problems, and I'll go from there. And for me, again, that's why this is like just a battering ram that blew through like all my metabolic issues. And in many ways, again, I don't think it's a shortcut. I think it's just a straight line. This is just a straight line getting out of your own way. And that's what I think the really big thing is. And that's why, again, I've seen this. Cole is doing this and Mark is doing this, where they're both saying, focus on the sugar fasting. Because I think what we're all feeling is when you lean into the sugar fasting is when it really blossoms. It's when you really see the power. Yeah, your weight's coming down faster. And again, that's a big part of this. Cole would say that's the most important part. And sure, by all means. But it's like, wait, my weight is coming down, but I'm feeling so much better than I always have. I can't remember ever feeling this good. And that is what I want people to really lean into. how powerful the sugar fasting is as a tool in your back pocket that you can add on to, you can jump into at anytime. And that's where this is so different from like a keto or carnivore or those types of elimination diets that, keto, it requires this on-ramp period. It can take 2 weeks, it can take 2 months before your body learns to run off of fat, before your digestive system feels clear, before your body figures out how to poop without fiber, before your body learns how to regulate its electrolytes. Like anyone who's ever done keto or carnivore can tell you that those first few weeks, they call it the keto flu. It's just your body's just dumping electrolytes, and you feel like shit. You feel like shit. That doesn't happen on this. If you get in enough sugar, you're fine. It's like you can jump into it at any point in time. And because of that, you can use it as a tool whenever you'd like. Whenever you'd like. You can throw it in on any given day. Like I said, you can go on vacation and you can come back, and let's say you were gone for 5 days and maybe you gained 7 pounds. Some of that's water, but that stuff happens to people all the time. Well, instead of worrying, oh man, I never lost the weight, or you gained the holiday season weight with Thanksgiving and Christmas, and you're just like, well, I'm just going to gain 5 to 10 pounds every year until I'm old and obese. But you go, no, you can just jump in on sugar fasting anytime you want. If you're gone for a week, you can come back, sugar fast for 3-4 days. During the holidays, you can have Thanksgiving dinner. You can do let's say you're one of those people who goes to multiple Thanksgiving dinners in a week. You have a family version. Maybe you have such a big family, you have multiple family versions. You have some with friends. You can sugar fast during the day, have Thanksgiving dinner at night, sugar fast starting again the next morning. When you're done with it all, you've had all of your Thanksgiving dinners, sugar fast for 2-3 days. It is like, again, this is like what Mark said. It is like fasting, but better and so much more powerful. And it's totally blowing traditional fasting out of the water. And that's why I'm telling people, learn how to sugar fast. Learn how to do it for one day. Learn how to do it for 3 days. If you can do that, then you can implement it whenever you'd like. Whenever you'd like. And like I said before, I don't think people eat enough on them. You will be made very aware of how much energy you are or aren't getting. I use the more kind of tangible measurements like your temperature or your sleep. And if you're someone who, wears some kind of what they call them wearables that tracks your sleep, that's great. But how you know if you got good sleep? If you feel like you got good sleep, that's the most important thing. That will give you really, really good feedback. But until you've done the sugar fast, you don't realize how much pure fruit and sugar you need to eat to get you through there. And this is the thing that I think a lot of people don't understand. If you're doing a normal sugar diet day, meaning you sugar fast during the day and then you eat a protein dinner or perhaps even a protein starch at dinner, the protein and starch is going to be making up a bulk of your calories. But not just that, compared to fruit and sugar, it's actually slowing down your metabolism, where sugar, the more you eat, the more it speeds it up. And so you will find that your energy needs are going up drastically when you sugar fast. And if you've I had a really, really sweet, what do you call it? Like a really, really nice, well, not a honeymoon period, but I was in a sweet spot like a month and a half ago with the diet, and I was sleeping really well. And then I went out to a party one night, and it threw off my sleep. And it was just like I could not figure out my sleep again. I just could not get it back under control. I was sugar fasting every day, and then I was having a variety of different dinners at night. I would try a lean protein dinner. I would try a pure starch dinner. Nothing I was doing was getting me back. And I had just started gaining weight because my sleep was so off. And I think either the combination of the fact that the sleep made it so I wasn't able to process my food well, or I was eating too much because of the stress. I couldn't really figure out what was going on and how to get back to where I was. And so I just said, screw it. I'm just going to sugar fast for 3 days. Lost 5 pounds. My sleep was totally back to normal. Totally back to normal. And again, that's why I'm using my own experience above everything. I want you guys to know, to the best of my abilities, to know what I have been through. And so that way, I can get you to understand, because that's the way that I know it, because I did it myself. I was there when I lost my sleep. I was there when I got it back. I was there when my weight started going back up, and I was there when it dropped right back down. And it's the pure sugar fast, which is the anchor of this diet. Whenever anything's going wrong, sugar fast for a few days, and you will see it'll just kind of right everything back on track. I have my orange juice here. I love my orange juice. Orange juice has been a big part of this for me. It just like, it goes down really well. There's kind of like this satisfying aspect to it. It's high in potassium. It's high in thiamine, vitamin B1, which helps your body process carbs. It's really, really big for glucose metabolism. And I think one of the things that people might be running into is they're all of a sudden throwing all this glucose into their system, especially if they're coming from a low carb diet, and their body quite literally can't handle it all. And so some people can't actually physically get in enough carbs because their body's being limited. They can't get enough sugar. And so you might want to supplement with vitamin B1. That is something that has helped a lot of people. It helped me at the start a bunch. And there's a lot of different kinds of thiamine. And so I think that's one of those things where, again, just like you have to experiment with diet, you have to experiment with supplements as well too. I was trying thiamine HCl, thiamine hydrochloride, and I would take somewhere between 100 milligrams to 500 milligrams a day, and it wasn't doing anything for me. And again, and the body temperature is a big, big part of kind of being able to get good feedback on what your body's doing. And so I switched to a different type of thiamine, which is called TTFD. I'm not going to be able to tell you what it's like, tetrathia something. There's all these different chemical forms of these singular vitamins and minerals. And so like there's benfotiamine. And I got TTFD from this brand called Objective Nutrition. And all of a sudden, everything changed. Basically, once I got on that, it was like the honey diet, sugar diet first started working for me. And so that was such a huge thing. And another thing I love about that one is it doesn't have any of the bad fillers and excipients in the supplements. And I like that one so much, I decided to become an affiliate for them so you can get a discount with RAINER on that. And I started taking their vitamin B1 and their B complex. It's called Thiactive B. Because, as you eat more sugar, your body actually increases its thiamine needs, right, to process the glucose. And as you increase your vitamin B1, you also increase the need for all the other B vitamins. And so then I started doing a combination of both. And, I had seen my body temperature jump up right away when I started taking them. And now I'm just taking the B complex because I think I've given myself enough of pure thiamine, and now it has all those in there. And so you will find a lot of these little things, which like, I don't feel like I've never heard Cole talk about thiamine. Haven't heard Mark talk about it. And so many people are saying, I'm doing the diet, it's not working. What I want to help you with is what's not working might be a lot of these little things. So thiamine might be something really good to try. If you, try these different forms and see what, some people report one works versus the other. So like I said, that one, the product, the thiamine product with Objective Nutrients is called Thiamax. And another thing is, this is ginger. This is candied ginger. I just got this from the store. Ginger is really good for the liver. And this is why, like, I always like looking at Chinese medicine stuff from time to time. I know very little about it, but it helps explain all these little things. Ginger is this spicy food, right? And a lot of people have reported that they're feeling cold on the sugar diet, and that's probably because they're eating too much frozen fruit, too much cold juice, too many smoothies. And I myself had a problem after I was kind of a few weeks into like really hard charging the diet, where I started to get really, really cold. And it's because I was eating tons of frozen fruit. And I felt not good because like feeling cold is not a good feeling. And what I started doing was, like I've talked about this before, I started making my sugar tea, which is just hot water, and I just pour sugar in there. You just put hot water on the stove, boil it, add sugar, stir it up, and drink that. And I started adding fresh ginger to it. So, ginger tea, fresh ginger tea, you can just boil ginger. And so I would boil the ginger in the water, right? I'd grate it in there, pour it through a strainer into a mug and add sugar and stir it up. And it was great. So the ginger is actually in Chinese medicine, is very good for the liver. And so I think if it's kind of hard to say, like, I can feel an organ. What does the liver feel like? But there is this feeling you get when your body feels like it's overloaded with sugar. I have found that ginger really, really helps. So why not kill two birds with one stone? This is just candied ginger. It's literally just ginger and sugar. Like I said, I've done ginger tea where I do fresh ginger. I've just add ginger powder sometimes if I don't have any fresh ginger or I'm lazy. Experiment with ginger. That might help a lot for your liver's ability to process all this sugar, and it might help with the body temperature too. If you're ever feeling cold, first try eating, less frozen fruit, but one of the ways to deal with that right away, that'll warm you up right away, sugar tea. If you can, throw fresh ginger in there, boil the ginger. If you can't, get ginger powder like from the spice rack at the store, throw that in there. If you want some ginger candy, I found snacking on ginger candy during the day can really help my body kind of not feel sort of stuck. At least like when I was first getting started, when I felt like my body was still adapting to all of the sugar. And I think the thiamine and the ginger really, really helped kind of, in many ways, like just open the floodgates and let the sugar go through my body. Because if you don't have that, you're going to be limited in how much sugar you can eat. And, that might be fine. Like for some people, just eat as much as you can tolerate. But if you still, like, you will be able to feel if your body is undernourished and you're not satiated. And that's why, again, like if you're eating predominantly just whole fruits, you can fill yourself up and your stomach is saying like, there's no real room for more food. And then like 30, 45 minutes later, all of a sudden you're like, oh, but I'm starving though. Like I still need sugar. There's all these different kind of methods that you can employ to improve your body's ability to process the sugar and to take in more food. And the feedback that you'll be getting if you're not getting enough is your body temperature being low, your sleep being bad, your energy levels being bad. And so we want to be able to bring energy all the way up top. You should be sleeping like a baby. The people who have been DMing me and telling me, oh my God, my sleep is so good, that's what I have felt. That's what I want you to feel too. And so if your energy is low and your sleep is low and your temperature is low, you need to eat more sugar. And if your body can't process the sugar, then try thiamine, try ginger. Some people might have to just lean more into starch, at least to get their body's ability to handle it. Again, you want to be able to troubleshoot whatever problems that you run into. And that's why the sugar fasting kind of just anchor to this is going to be so huge. I know I've repeated this so many times. I want to get it through your head that you can kind of branch off the diet many ways. I'm not saying that anyone has to eat like this. I want you to figure out the thing that works for you the best. And for everyone, that's going to look very, very different. But if you can at least just like I'm sure a lot of you had tried intermittent fasting. At this point, 2025, anyone who cares about health has tried intermittent fasting because it has been sold as, the solution. But if you can intermittent fast, you can sugar fast. You can just eat fruit. You can just drink juice. It is much easier than just straight up fasting. If you can get that skill down, it'll open so many metabolic doors for you. It'll give you so much more freedom and flexibility with your diet. It'll give you a very, not any kind of cheat code, not something that works against your system, but a very fast acting solution to deal with insufficient energy, insufficient sleep, sudden unwanted weight gain. Like I said, you went out of town, you went on vacation, you had a party, whatever, get it right back under control. The sugar fasting is going to be the anchor of all of this. If you can get that figured out, you can figure out how to work in all these different aspects of your life. You can have the pure freedom and flexibility to go do whatever you want. You have the ability to work in more of these kinds of days. And so I want to finish by really giving you a good feel for more of these days, right? I talked about the pure sugar fast day. I talked about the intermittent sugar fast with the lean protein dinner. And then from there, you have the fattier protein dinner version. You have the lean protein with starch. And then I say once you have a fatty protein and a starch in the dinner, now you're kind of more into like, I don't know if we want to be using the verbiage of cheat meals, but you're just kind of throwing more at your system all at once. And from there, then there's just like, you know, just all of the most extreme versions of pizza and beer and wings and cheeseburgers and French fries and all that kind of stuff. You can have that kind of one-off thing, and then, like I said, go right back to the sugar fast. But then there's a lot of other weird diets which are very, very healthy, and there's no reason why you can't include those in the greater sugar diet, sugar fasting paradigm. You can, if you've heard of the potato diet, it's exactly what it sounds like. You eat nothing but potatoes. Go on Google and type in slime mold potato diet. It doesn't mean that the potatoes are slimy and moldy. There's a blog. There's a guy named Slime Mold, and he has the best articles and the best resources for learning about the potato diet. People lose tons of weight on the potato diet, for instance, right? And it's a pure carb diet. It's a pure starch diet. And you might be saying, wait, I thought starch doesn't work for weight loss. It's good. No, listen. First off, everybody's body is different. And so what each person's metabolism is working with or not working with is coming from all these kind of different reasons and places. But what you can do is, if you're just like really, really craving starch and you want a bunch of starch one day, what if you just did a potato diet day? Why not? Like your weight might jump up a little bit because of the glycogen, but everyone loses weight on this potato diet thing. And once you learn how to sugar diet, you can really figure out how to cycle in these various types of days. And yeah, I don't want to confuse people. This is a lot more advanced, but in the sense that you have freedom with this diet. You have freedom with doing this. And again, like once you get lean and everything feels good, you have to be able to figure out how to then structure what your life looks like at that point, right? You're not trying to lose weight forever. And so, but the thing is, the idea that you would just eat the same thing every day, that doesn't make any sense. The same, you have 3 square meals a day with the same foods and then do it day in, day out. That doesn't make any sense. So instead, what you can do is you can figure out how to play with all these different foods and get you to your goals. Throw in a potato diet day. I do a milk diet day once every week, once every 2 weeks, where I just drink nothing but like a gallon of milk all day. I've been playing with all this stuff, and yet maybe some of it is slowing down the fat loss. But for me, as long as I feel good and I'm getting progress to where I want to go, if I have high energy, if my sleep is good, I'm still learning so much about this. And then what I want to be able to do is share that with you. If I had no other interest besides getting as lean and skinny as possible and as fast as possible, I would just sugar fast straight through. Look, I've posted about this on Twitter, and I just posted about it on Instagram in the last few days, where I talked about a juice cleanse that I did when I just got out of college, long, long time ago. I lost 23 pounds in 12 days. Trust me, I know how to do rapid fat loss, but I just don't feel there's any need to do that, right? Because when you do it that extreme, and again, like it's not like I was severely overweight. When you have 100 plus pounds to lose, you have 60, 70, 80 pounds to lose, 200 pounds to lose. Yeah, you're probably going to be losing a pound or two a day. But I wasn't like that. I only weighed 182 pounds and I lost 23 pounds in 12 days. Severely underfed, but still getting some sugar from the juices, but it's those vegetable juices. And you kind of start feeling all like loopy and your sleep's weird. And the kind of the cravings you have for food are kind of insane. I don't want to do that to myself. But also like, I'm still living my life and I'm still, I'm going out of town and eating good food and going out with friends and going out with family. But again, it's like, it's making it work for your life, because your life does not exist in some kind of weird vacuum. And for some people, you might have to sugar fast very strictly for a long time, or you might just have the desire and the freedom and the want to do that. And by all means, go for that. And when you have that, you have the ability, you have the flexibility to play with all these other elements. You can shift all these different you can cycle these different dinners in there. You can have this type of day for the first part of your day, in the morning and the lunch and the dinner. All these diets that I've always been drawn to really segment different parts of the day or different kinds of days. If you've been in the keto world, you might have heard of cyclical ketogenic diet, where it's you have a carb up day. Lots of these diets, a lot of bodybuilder diets have a weekly carb up days because they always knew that your metabolism would slow down if you didn't eat carbs. So we're kind of solving that problem by eating lots of carbs every single day. And so instead what we can do is we can cycle in various nutrients. We can cycle in a lot more micronutrients by adding in these other foods. That's why I'm really big on shellfish. Shellfish has so many micronutrients. You can add in some organs if you'd like. You can add in some dairy. One of the things on this diet is there's not a lot of calcium. There are calcium vegetable sources, but again, we're not vegan, so we don't have to go for those. But on your lean meat days, if you have some spinach, you cook spinach, again, you're not going to want to cook it in oil. Well, spinach has calcium in it, but you really have to cook it to be able to access it. So again, it's like, if you don't have calcium, your metabolism actually will also slow down, because just like you have your thyroid hormone, you have what's called the parathyroid hormone, and you want that to be low and you want your thyroid to be high, and calcium will lower your parathyroid hormone. So these are all these kind of things that I've learned from all these different diets that I've experimented with, I've read about, I've tried, I've implemented all these different ways. And this is kind of what I found to work really, really well. So I want you all to think about this. I want you to really understand the sugar fast and feel it, and just get your body to know what it's like to have a complete abundance of pure energy in the form of sugar. And if you're not sleeping right and your energy is not very high during the day, the likelihood that you are going to have, even if you're getting results, that you're going to have continued results are going to be low. The likelihood that you're going to stick to this diet are going to be low. And so I want to set you up for success long term. And I just want you to know what it feels like to feel this good. And that comes from going really hard on the sugar, adding in a lot of sugar fasting days. What I'm kind of doing right now is like a rolling 3-day sugar fast, where I'll sugar fast for 3 days and then eat a normal meal. And sometimes that normal meal is a more extravagant, more of a cheat-like meal. But if you have a social life and you were already going to eat that meal on that dinner anyways, well, a way to really mitigate the damages of that are to sugar fast. And also, like I said, if you sugar fast during the day, you're way, way less likely to overeat on that meal at night. Like next week is my birthday, and I'm going out of town. And so I will probably be eating, more delicious dinners at night. Might be going out for dinner a lot of nights. And there's a very good chance that my scale weight will go up 5 pounds next week, right? Potentially just from water, who knows, inflammation, I don't know, but I'm not too worried about it. I'm still going to try to sugar fast most days during the day before the dinner at night, but I'm not going to limit myself. If I want to go eat something and it's there and it sounds good, I'm going to have it. And then you know what I'm going to do when I get back? I'm going to go right back to it. And that's what you can do. You can always go back to the sugar fast. The sugar fast is your friend. The sugar fast is home. The sugar fast feels good. Sugar fast is sweet and delicious, and it's full of sugar, and it should give you lots of energy and lots of sleep. Go home with that. Learn how to sugar fast. I want you to feel amazing. Until next time, make sure to like and subscribe. Drop any more questions. I still have so many questions to get through on the Q&As. I promise I'll try to get through them all. And if I haven't, feel free to comment on any newer video and throw it in there. And I'll do more YouTube lives. So feel free to jump on that. That's all it for me today. Thank you, everybody. And I will see you next time.